your $31 price target applies a 20x price to sales multiple on next year's expected revenue. That's perhaps within the same ballpark of what we've seen from Twitter and Facebook, but there have been questions about Snap's growth rate, especially after Facebook started cloning some features. What gives you the confidence to put that kind of aggressive target on the stock now?
Well, you're right, John. It's an aggressive, it's a high price to sales multiple. We think the growth rate sustains that or warrants it. What I mean by that is Facebook trades at around 10 times sales with about 40% revenue growth. Snapchat this year is going to be about 5 times faster than that, almost 200%. We think it can be a 100% grower for the next couple of years. Just keep in mind, we're talking about small numbers or small base. Facebook does $26 billion in revenue. Google does $80 billion in ad revenue, and Snapchat just gave you a year with $600 million in revenue. If they succeed, if they continue to innovate for both consumers and advertisers, we think they can easily sustain, triple-digit growth for several years.
Eric, you look at some of the same numbers, but come up with a different result. $24 price target for you on Snap, which is pretty darn close to where it's trading right now, which explains the neutral rating. Why are you less confident in Snap's ability to grow from here?
Well, I think it's not a question of growth. It's a question of where the company is at its stage of maturation. I think to put very large multiples on a company this early, we were a little reticent to do that, to go that far. This is a company that isn't going to be profitable until 2020 on our model. So I think we have a long way to go to sustain revenue growth before we get to profitability, to be able to put those kind of multiples. Facebook went public at a very different point in its maturation. It was still growing very fast, albeit it was very profitable. So I think for us, there's still key open debates on user growth, monetization, eventually profitability, and all that feeds into the valuation for us right here.
Mark, how optimistic are you the current Snap user base will continue to use it throughout their lives? I mean, have they just captured the millennials whilst they're young, or as millennials age, will they continue to use this platform?
I think that's one of the key questions on the stock. So we do semi-annual surveys, both of advertisers but of users too. And by our numbers, we think about 50% of millennials in the U.S. are currently using Snapchat. If the product continues to innovate as well as it does, and if you want a quick example, we're in the middle of March Madness. Check out the March Madness content that's in the stories part of Snapchat. I think it's the most compelling content you'll find online today, on a phone today. And then we found it over in the older generations, the people a little younger than me, the 36 to 50-year-olds. We found that already 20% of them are using Snapchat. So we're seeing these cohorts continue to rise. We think that's a bullish indicator. If the company continues to innovate, they've out-innovated everybody so far. They have to keep doing it. If they can, we think the user base will rise.
I mean, Mark, but the problem is that some people say, yes, they out-innovate, yes, they have Evan Spiegel product genius, but if Facebook can basically replicate a lot of these functions that are working, like the Instagram Stories feature at a bigger scale, that's a huge threat.
It could be. Look, if we're wrong on this call, I think the single biggest reason I talked with our sales force this morning about it is that Instagram and Facebook come in and cut the legs out of this. I think there's a couple of other trends that are really important to keep in mind, however. The biggest power alley today in terms of advertising growth, not just internet, but overall advertising growth, is mobile video advertising. It's the fastest growing channel, and the company with the best creative, and when we did checks with advertisers, just to make sure we were right on this, the number one reason that advertisers are diverting budgets and campaigns over to Snapchat is that's the growth area that advertisers want to be in. So I'm not concerned about the revenue growth. Longer term, I have to worry about that user growth, but they're in the right space at the right time.
Eric, Mark mentions mobile video advertising at a time when a number of advertisers, Johnson & Johnson, Verizon, AT&T, are pulling away from YouTube because of long-term programmatic concerns, or concerns about the types of content where their ads are appearing. Isn't Snap kind of a hedge against that trend because it's so highly curated?
Well, it's an interesting point. We actually had a note out over the weekend around what's going on with Google and YouTube. Our extensive conversations, and we tend to talk to in excess of 70 advertising contacts every quarter, would point that most of what's going on with YouTube is a little bit more noise than reality. There's a lot of opportunism going on. We believe there's a lot of positioning ahead of the upfront that starts in 4 weeks from a negotiating leverage standpoint. So I wouldn't overplay the YouTube angle. I think it's a very easy story to sort of scare people, and the press is sort of picked up on it, but we actually don't see much changing in terms of overall advertising trends for YouTube. And with respect to Snapchat, again, it's early days. This is a company that did $406 million of revenue in 2016. We do think they get to north of $1 billion, but I think it's a little early to be saying that someone's diverting a budget dollar, especially within digital, out of an existing digital ecosystem into Snapchat. Most of our conversations, and it's detailed in our note today, based on talking to advertisers, is incremental spend, experimental spend. I think how that spend scales and grows over the next 3 to 5 years is key to Snapchat's growth.
Eric, just a quick final question in terms of a factor that perhaps could support the share price moving forward, a sort of wildcard factor. Is it possible we're going to see more strategic stakes taken in the company? I mean, NBC has taken one, our parent company, but still only a small one at this stage. So do you think there'll be companies like that trying to buy up more stock?
It's possible. I don't have any edge on that, nor can I rule it out. I think, Comcast, my understanding, was a participant in the transaction itself and is locked up for a certain period of time. That was in the prospectus and in the final pricing document that we saw. But I don't have any great edge on anyone coming in and taking a stake at Snapchat at these levels.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.